I'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst.
She has to recuse herself for this part of the meeting.
Attorney Murphy.
Present.
Ms. Naylor.
Present.
Ms. Gresham.
Present.
Ms. Perez.
Present.
Mr. Collins.
Here,
Mayor Sarno.
President, is there a motion on the floor to go in executive session, please?
Sure, I'll make a motion to enter into executive session 2. Number 1, discuss strategy related to agreement with Springfield School Committee and Springfield Education Association and Springfield Federation of Paraprofessionals regarding 10 days of professional collaboration planning time. Number 4, item 2, discuss strategy related to agreement with Springfield School Committee and Springfield Education Association regarding remote learning expectations. Number 3, to discuss strategy related to the agreement with Springfield School Committee and Springfield Education Association regarding remote evaluations. And number 4, to discuss the agreement with Springfield School Committee, Springfield Education Association, Springfield Administrators Association, and Springfield Federation of Paraprofessionals regarding remote learning working conditions.
There's a motion on the floor by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Perez. Roll call vote is required.
Yeah, just note that the committee will return to open session.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins, second by School Committee Woman Maria Perez. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst, absent. Attorney Murphy.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
Yes.
Ms. Gresham.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board is sufficient vote to passes. We will now go into executive session and we'll come back to live session for our regularly scheduled meeting.
So everyone needs to leave this Zoom and click on the link in the email that you got for the Springfield Public Schools Zoom. And we'll see you when we all get into that Zoom.
We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Hurst.
Present.
Attorney Murphy.
Present.
Ms. Naylor.
Present.
Ms. Gresham.
Present.
Ms. Perez.
She's here. Ms. Maria?
Maria, you're muted.
Ms. Perez.
Present.
Mr. Collins.
Here.
Mayor Sarno.
President, can we all please rise for a moment of silence and the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Let me extend our apologies, heartfelt apologies to the viewing audience. We just came out of executive session and we have a school committee that works very hard. They have a lot of questions and comments on some agreements we have as we move to remote teaching to start for our students and our teachers. And we've had to come to agreements which we have, and I want to thank the school committee members because they're very thoughtful of questions and suggestions and concerns, and we've reached agreement on it. So again, our apologies. I want to thank Focus Springfield, Osway. I want to thank my Renaissance man here, my city solicitor, Ed who was playing Mr. IT this evening on it. So with that, let's go to the agenda, and we will go to approve the minutes of June 18th, 2020 regular session, then August 4th, 2020 town hall meeting. And I want to thank Ms. Naylor on that suggestion. June 30th, 2020 working session, then August 6th, 2020 working session, and August 20th, 2020 working session. So the school committee has been working hard on behalf of our students and teachers and families.
We accept all the minutes.
There's a motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Because we're doing these Zoom meetings, roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for insufficient votes, the matter passes. Thank you. We'll now move to section 3. These are voting items. Is it A, to approve the City of Springfield diploma for Jonas Davis Delanis, Superintendent Warwick?
Yeah, Jonas went through an out-of-district placement private day. He met all the requirements relative to the coursework and met the CE requirements for MCAS, so I'm recommending approval of the diploma.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments?
So moved, and congratulations.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Perez. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for insufficient vote, this matter passes. Jonas, congratulations. B is to approve a City of Springfield diploma for Rebecca Hoffman. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Yeah, you know, all of these are out-of-district private day placement. Rebecca Hoffman met the qualifications for a City of Springfield diploma. She met the course requirements, and because we didn't have the MCAS retest, she took relevant coursework to get the competency determination. So she qualifies for a diploma based on this year's regulations. So I'm recommending approval of her diploma.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? There's a motion on the floor.
So moved.
Motion by Vice,
Congratulations, Rebecca.
motion by Vice Chair Collins. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for insufficient vote, this matter passes. Congratulations, Rebecca. C is to approve the Springfield diploma for Melvin Mania. Superintendent Warwick.
Yeah, again, an out-of-district private day placement. Student qualifies for a diploma by having completed the course requirements and the relevant coursework to make up for the lack of the MCAS test retesting. So student qualifies, I'm recommending.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Congratulations to Melvin.
A motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for insufficient vote, this matter passes. Congratulations, Melvin. Thank you. D is to approve a City of Springfield diploma for Tyrell Dixon Hughes. Superintendent Warwick.
Are all qualified the same way, relevant coursework, and then without the MCAS testing, he did the relevant coursework to make up for it. So he qualifies for a high school diploma.
Thank you.
Recommending approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor, please?
I'll defer to Mrs. Gresham because unfortunately I cut her off the last.
Ms. Gresham,
So moved.
motion by, there was a motion by Ms. Gresham. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor, Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for insufficient vote, the matter passes. Tyrell, congratulations. We'll now move to E, approve a City of Springfield diploma for Dylan Harvey Ho. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Dylan qualified for a diploma, and the course requirements, the MCAS, I'm recommending approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Naylor, is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passed. Congratulations, Dylan. F is to approve a City of Springfield diploma for John Chamorro Pass. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Yeah, John met all the requirements, qualifies for a City of Springfield diploma, including the MCAS requirements.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Perez, is there a second, please?
Second.
Well, there's a tie here. I'll give it to Ms. Gresham. Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor, Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board is official vote, this matter passes. Congratulations, John. G is to approve the revisions to the laptop take-home policy. This is the second vote. Superintendent Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this has been through subcommittee and was through school committee before. It was a required change we had to make because we did laptops as a take-home piece. And we're no longer collecting the insurance fee or anything because we have the extra laptops that we're accessing. So again, it's been through subcommittee and school committee once, just requiring a second vote because it's a change in policy.
And thank you for all the work done on the
Yeah,
subcommittee. Any questions or comments? The hearing none, is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Naylor. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Vice Chair Collins, roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board is sufficient votes, matter passes. Thank you very much. H is to approve an agreement between the Springfield School Committee, the Springfield Education Association, the Springfield Federation of Paraprofessionals regarding the 10 days of professional collaboration planning time. And again, I want to thank the negotiating unit, Superintendent Warwick. I want to thank the school committee members. That's why we were late. Very thoughtful questions and suggestions on these next 4 voting items. Superintendent Warwick.
Yeah, we discussed it at length in the executive session, recommending approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Abstain.
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board of official votes, matter passes. Thank you. I is to approve an agreement between the Springfield School Committee and the Springfield Education Association regarding remote learning expectations. Superintendent Warwick.
Yeah, this is another one we discussed at length in executive session, recommending approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor? So moved. Motion by Vice Chair Collins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Abstain.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board of official votes, this matter passes. Thank you. J is to approve an agreement with the Springfield School Committee and the Springfield Education Association regarding remote learning evaluation. Superintendent Warwick.
Again, discussed in length in executive session, recommending approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Is there a motion on the floor? So moved. Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Abstain.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote, this matter passes. Thank you very much. K is to approve the agreement between the Springfield School Committee, the Springfield Education Association, the Springfield Administrators Association, and the Springfield Federation of Paraprofessionals regarding remote working conditions. Superintendent Warren, please.
Again, discussed at length during executive session, recommending approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warren. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Sorry. I forgot. I don't remember if I asked this question. No, I did ask it, but we didn't get in detail about it. What about the staff that are outside of those units? Or do we have any staff that are part of the district that are not part of those units?
Oh, yes.
And so do we have guidelines in place for those staff? Or will it be similar guidance that they follow?
We'd have guidance in place for those staff. We just wouldn't have to collectively bargain.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Good, thank you for clarifying that, Ms. Taylor. Any other questions or comments? The hearing none, is there a motion on the floor? So moved. Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Abstain.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
No.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote, this matter passes. Thank you very much. L is to approve the MIAA DESI School Sports Program modifications due to COVID-19. I know we have that great ball player this day, ADA. Wayne Early's there too. Superintendent Warwick.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. He's been working on this. We talked about it a few weeks ago as a, introduction to the situation. Guidelines came out after that, and Dwayne's had time to do a lot of work on it, put a recommendation together. He and Lydia did a great job on this, and we had a discussion in subcommittee this morning on it that Mrs. Hurst was nice enough to pull together for us. So I'd like to turn it over to Dwayne to go over his recommendations at this juncture.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick, and good evening, everyone. So as we discussed a few weeks ago, the MIAA, EEA, and DESI came down with some guidelines to make some suggestions for the fall sports season. What that meant for SPS is that we offered 6 sports in the fall season, 2 falling in each category: low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. The low risk sports that I've gave recommendations to be played are cross country as well as golf, and both to be played under the EEA, DESI, and sports modifications that were voted on by the MIAA. Also, to be played, I've recommended moderate risk sport of soccer to also be played under the guidelines of the EEA, DESI, and the sports modifications committees voted on by the MIAA. To be postponed to the fall season 2, which will take place in March and April. We've got 2 sports, which are volleyball, and my recommendation for postponing that would be due to the fact that practice and games are held indoor, and we're trying to stay away from the inside of the facilities. And also cheerleading, which is also practiced indoors. So therefore, I did make the recommendation to stay away from those 2 sports just because of the indoor for practicing games. The high-risk sport that we have is also football. Football in the fall is going to be recommended be played for practice only, non-contact practice, no helmet, no pads, in cohorts of 10 that are separated by 14 feet. Again, this is practice only for football. their season would be also in fall 2, which is March and April. And again, it's non-contact drills and by cohorts of 10 and 14 and separated by 14 feet apart.
Thank you, AD Early. Is there any questions or comments of AD Early?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Oh.
So with the football practice, can this include other schools in the surrounding the district? Say, for instance, Bay Path, or not Bay Path, but Bay State charter school. Would the charter schools be able to practice with our district?
I don't believe Bay State Charter School has a football team. However, we don't make any decisions.
That's charter. We have no control over that part of it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
I know it went through Denise's subcommittee this morning. I didn't know.
Ms. Hurst, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to wait for AD to finish and for Mrs. Gresham to ask her question. And I'm sure that there may be others. I am very thankful to AD Early and Assistant Superintendent Martinez. I do know that they did quite a bit of work on this. I also know that it was that the MIA came out with these recommendations last Friday. So we did have a really great conversation in subcommittee this morning, and you know, we do have some concerns and some pause, just because we want to ensure that we keep our students safe. We also understand that, you know, there might be some sentiments around, you know, is this a mixed message that we've gone remote, but yet we're still letting our students play sports? And so we understand that there are several arguments. We understand that we also want to be mindful of our students' social and emotional engagement and social interactions. And so, you know, a couple of things that came up in our meeting today was around transportation, just in case Barbara, Maria, Chris, Peter have questions about that. And I don't know if the superintendent or AD Early would like to speak to that, but we would have to follow busing guidelines to ensure that there wasn't any overcrowdedness, that they'd have significant space between themselves. I know that there is a conversation around, would students report to campus or would they report directly to Forest Park, which is where cross country meets? So I do think that it would be helpful to have some more clarity around that, because we want to ensure that we're not, you know, exceeding those particular numbers. With respect to soccer, I know that Latonia Hassel had some concerns around the mask wearing and what that might be like as students are participating in these sports and exerting energy. And then lastly, we did have quite a bit of concern around football, considering it is high risk. I do understand the importance of allowing, again, our children an opportunity to socialize and exercise and really, you know, be able to get ready for that season. I was able to get off of our call and do a bit of research on my own. And I know AD Early talked about some of the other districts in the surrounding area who have adopted these recommendations. And one of the things that came up that I didn't get an opportunity, or that we didn't get an opportunity to discuss, but I was able to catch the superintendent, were just concerns around Title IX and making sure that we're being gender equitable. So for those districts that have allowed practice for football, they wanted to ensure that they were also allowing practice for cheer, and that those were going to be taking place outside without any stunts, and they'd be able to socially distance. And so that, I think, is one of the other things that we need to consider, is just making sure that we're being equitable, and that if teams can practice outside using the same accommodations that we're going to implement for football, that we need to be able to allow them to also have access to that same you know, social interaction and exercise as we're allowing the others.
Thank you for your work, Ms. Hurst, on this. Any questions or comments on Ms. Hurst's report?
Mayor, can I ask one question of Mr. Early?
Go ahead.
Mr. Early, with respect to the football practices, I know we have probably hundreds of kids that, obviously it's between Central, Putnam, Commerce, SciTech, and our other Renaissance, et cetera. We have hundreds of kids that play football, and I think they're all men, boys. So how are we going to do that with groups of only 10? How is that? If you know, how do you make that happen? And I think, just as an aside, I do think it's important. We've got a great football program in the city of Springfield. We've had tremendous success. I think it provides a lot of structure and for our young men. And I think it's important, if we can keep it going safely, that we do.
Yeah.
So how do we do that 10 at a time?
Great question, Attorney Murphy. So in speaking with the surrounding districts, ADs, we have came up with a couple of different ideas in regards to football practice. So for football, Commerce and Renaissance, which co-op together, they practice behind the field at Duggan, which is a pretty good sized field. So that's the field that they utilize. So that would take them off away from the Central and the Putnam and the SciTech, because they practice over at Duggan. As far as Central goes, they're our largest football team with about probably 80 to 100 members. So what we would do with them, of course, in the groups of 10, but they also have the ability to utilize Blunt Park as well as the turf at Central High School. So we can spread them out that way. We've also discussed putting them in skill position groups so that the groups never cross. So a group of 10 would be a group of 10 of linemen, defensive and offensive linemen. Then you have a group of 10 with running backs, a group of 10 of wide receivers, and so on and so forth. We could develop a schedule so that they're rotating in and out, and they're not all there at the same time, because of course we want to stick to the guidelines of separation by 14 feet. And also Putnam and the SciTech co-op, they also utilize Blunt Park Field, but it's the other side of the field, and they're a little bit smaller of a team, about 60 kids. So again, they would follow the same rotating in and out and going by skill groups.
Well, that sounds great, Mr. Early. Thank you. Thank you for that. And
Mayor, could I also just add, which is something that we didn't address but was talked about in subcommittee, is that the MIAA is also requiring that the students have COVID testing before they begin practice on the 18th, I think it is, of September. So I think it's going to be really critical that that message gets delivered to parents in enough time for them to be able to get that testing done. I know that there was some conversations around temperature taking, and I think it was Assistant Superintendent Martinez said that we had and Superintendent Ward, please correct me, that we do have the ability to be able to do that. And I think that the other thing was, even though the MIAA isn't mandating masks, but that when they're on the sidelines, such as the soccer students or the soccer players, that they'd have their masks on. And then I think we just need to be really mindful about water bottles and the busing, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah. We talked about the masks. Dwayne, I think, has a great answer on how the mask thing would be administered. The transportation piece Denise brought up earlier, we follow all the guidelines. So it might mean we have to run 2 buses where we ran 1 in the past, but it's an equity issue. Some systems are going in and they're not providing transportation, but if we didn't provide transportation, some of our kids couldn't get there. Be an equity issue they couldn't play. So I think if we're going to make the decision to play, we've got to provide the transportation, and we certainly agree with Denise that we got to do that. Relative to the temperature checks, we followed up with Jeannie after the meeting and looked it up, and maybe Dwayne can explain it better than me, but the guidance is not to do the temperature checks, to follow the other guidance from MIAA. Dwayne could speak to that better than I.
AD early, please.
Yes, Superintendent Warwick and Mayor Sarno. So the temperature checks, they're recommending that those be administered before a student athlete or coach comes to practice or to a game.
Mayor, could I ask just a couple brief questions?
Tony Murphy, right?
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Am I interrupting? Mr. Early, do we have enough, if we're breaking everybody in, and I guess I'm talking about football here, and I do think it's important that we keep it going for our young people. Do we have enough coaches to break everybody down into groups of 10?
So we do have there's a certain amount per school of paid staff members, and we also have a lot of volunteer coaches that volunteer on all staff. So there are a number of coaches and enough to be able to maintain those groups of 10. Yes, there are.
And I'm sorry, just one last question with respect to the masking, particularly football, which is is a contact sport. I understand that they're not supposed to have contact, but you know how that goes. But I'm told that there is a new helmet that has like a sort of a mask on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And have we looked into that? I mean, I understand this is a difficult time for everyone to adjust to. So, do we have any of those helmets, or are we looking at that?
Yeah, well, Attorney Murphy, so for the fall season one, they wouldn't be wearing helmets. They'd just be out conditioning in the warmer weather, shorts and a t-shirt. And then as the weather got a little bit cooler, probably sweatpants or whatever they feel comfortable. But we wouldn't be using helmets or pads at this point right now, because obviously the objective is to keep everyone out of the inside of the school. And in order for me to distribute equipment, they'd have to go inside the school into the equipment room and interact with the equipment manager, and we're trying to avoid any unnecessary contact with people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
To that point, can we also make sure that we're making it abundantly clear that there is to not be any conditioning or practicing inside of the buildings? So if there's a torrential downpour, right, then that means it's canceled. Then that we're not going to just make the assumption of, oh, we can just go into the gym.
Ms. Hurst, if this is passed by the school committee, I will have an orientation meeting with all the coaches that are going to be doing anything in fall season one, and it will be made abundantly clear that if it's inclement weather, then practice is canceled for the day, and there's no going inside for anything.
And AD early, if I can point out, if facilities have to be used, bathroom facilities, if the proper cleaning is going to be disinfecting will be done with they have to go into the building to use the facility. I believe we have that in place too.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Mayor, can you say that again? It was so hard to hear you.
That we just to reassure the public that, at times the young men or young women are going to have to use the facility in the school, and they'll have the proper, as we're doing now, the proper cleaning and disinfecting that goes on for use of bathroom facilities. And the AD clarified that.
Yeah, Mayor Sarno, at the central campus, we have outdoor facilities that are located inside of Birdie Stadium that we use during football games. So we'll have those open so that they still don't even have to enter the building. And over at Duggan, where the Commerce and Renaissance co-op football team practices, we can make accommodations over there as well.
I want to clarify from Vice Chair Collins.
Yeah, AD Early, to follow up on what Denise just said about cheer, would you, if the committee was to amend to allow cheer outdoors only at 4 feet apart like you do with football, would you have an issue with that? Or do you think that's reasonable?
Absolutely no issue whatsoever, Mr. Collins. Again, the only reason I made the recommendation to postpone those sports is because of my fear of them having to use the indoors. But if we can accommodate them going outside and find a grassy area off inside of Birdie Stadium or anywhere that's safer than the practice, they won't be doing any stunts. So like I said, I feared that if they were doing stunt stuff like that, there's no padding outdoors. But because they won't be doing any stunts, they'll just be conditioning and things like that. We will be able to accommodate that in an outdoor way.
So do you want to amend the recommendation before we vote to put that verbally? Do you want to amend your recommendation to allow cheer under the way you just described? Okay.
Yeah, that would be great, because Denise brought up a great point about the Title IX. So I think that would put us in, we're treating them exactly the same as football, as long as they practice outside.
And AD early, any question on the weather pattern, and whether changes could clear up or something could happen at the tail end of practice. Any question, practices or the get-togethers would be canceled ahead of time. Something happens after the fact, that's the story.
Well, most teams, Mayor Sarno, if they can practice in a little bit of rain, it's the thunder that would be the issue. If there was any thunder or lightning, we'd immediately have to cancel practice and get all kids to safety.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Hurst, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, Mayor, the last thing, and perhaps Jean Clancy would weigh in, but I also think, just like when we were discussing the return to school, I do think that we need to make sure that when AD Early does his orientation, that there's also clarity around making sure that if in fact there is any case, right, even just one case, that those folks are notified immediately, because 10 people potentially being exposed and then going back home could create much more chaos than we would like. So just really making sure that people know that they have to disclose so that we can move forward diligently to keep everybody else safe.
Nurse Clancy, do you want to clarify that? I know we worked very closely with Helen Calton-Harris on this too, on the contact tracing. But maybe you could clarify for the viewing public that the process is a good point brought up by Ms. Hurst.
Yes, we have a close relationship with Springfield Health and Human Services. I was on a call with the nurse manager and Mr. Vard today. We would be notified if somebody was positive. We would also increase education. I'm going to work with Mr. Early and train the coaches and the trainers.
Jeannie, you're fading in and out. You might have to repeat yourself.
Oh, sorry. It's a new computer too.
That's better.
Okay. Mr. Early called me today. So I work closely with Springfield Health and Human Services, and they would notify me if there was a positive case in Springfield that involved one of our students. The family would be taught to notify us also. We're also going to educate the coaches and the trainers on an overview of COVID, how it's transmitted, all the symptoms, the at-risk population, what to do if someone becomes ill, and how to prevent the spread. So that would go over what the family is doing for symptom checking at home, on top of making sure the family understands if they are to self-isolate, that still means they're home, if they have to follow travel restrictions, or if they've come in contact with someone who's COVID positive. We're also going to add to every year, anytime you do MIA sports, we have to do mandated training for concussion and opioid training. We're going to add COVID training to that. So it will be a huge opportunity to enhance the knowledge in the community.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question. So the question I have is, I know that face shields are also an option outside of just a regular face covering. Is that something that we can consider, particularly for sports where people have to exert a lot of energy? I said this several times, I think earlier in our subcommittee, that I am concerned about students needing to wear heavy layers of cloth over their face when they are running or doing these things that are going to require them to have to breathe heavily. And so I wonder if we can consider face shields for those students. I know that when they're engaging in activity, it's optional. I imagine there's some parents that are probably going to mandate that their kids wear them while they're engaging in activity, and it's not optional for them, for the kid. So I am really concerned about that. And I am equally concerned. I do understand the kickback as far as the temperature checks. I do know that it states in the regulations and that are here that we have that temperature checks are required, and it doesn't say who is required to do them. I just wonder how many people are actually going to do a temperature check before they leave the house, and how many people are going to be honest when you meet people to self-disclose whether or not they've been engaged or done anything that was at risk, if we don't have any type of protocol set up to really validate whatever they're saying.
Anybody like to clarify that? Mr. A.D. Early or Nurse Clancy, Superintendent Warwick, from the surf?
So the guidelines actually say that for the individuals that are going to coaching, when they come to the field, that is part of their certification, that they've already checked, and that they just up in the field is the certification that they've done that. That's part of what we're going to be working with Jeannie, so that the coaches all understand what that means. And so we'll also be keeping track of that. And they have to certify per the district also, that they understand that they have to do these guidelines. And so that's part of the training that we're putting together for all the coaches, and having them sign off that they understand that by showing up to practice, they are saying that they are COVID-free to the best of their knowledge, and that they've taken their temperature.
Thank you.
And I guess if I just may add one more piece to that, and thinking about inequity, it is very difficult to get a thermometer. Like, I had to order one from Amazon, and it took 6 weeks for it to come in. So I guess the reason why I keep pushing the issue is that there is still this possibility that students that we have may not have access to a thermometer. So when we're saying to them, please make sure you're checked, a parent's check is feeling them like this, and oh, you don't feel like you have a fever, so you go on, you're good. And that may not mean they don't have a fever because I felt you like this and you're not hot. So that is why I continue, like, I get it. I think for me, yeah, I have one of those scan things where my daughter scans all of us every day to make sure all of us are good, right? But I keep pushing that, because even with the coaches, more than likely they get it, they understand it, and they may have access to a thermometer. But I just feel like I'm probably going to press the issue always, just because I know that there's going to be parents who are not going to be able to, or not going to check their kids before the kids have to leave the house, or they're not home, they're at work, whatever, I don't know. But I just see that being an issue, and I'm just highly concerned of that one person showing up, and all you need to do is have them show up for 5 minutes and cough on somebody or breathe on somebody, and now you have more people that are sick. And so that is going to be a concern of mine. I agree with everything else that we're requesting, but I feel like that is going to be a big barrier to me being able to make a sound decision, because I still feel like we're leaving the safety of the population in the hands of people to make sure that everybody is holding themselves accountable. And if they don't, we're going to be liable for that consequence. And so that is, I just want to say that.
So, may I, Mayor?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I understand what Assistant Superintendent Martinez is saying, but I have to say that I agree. I mean, I agree with what LaTonya is saying, because all of our families don't have access. And so when we spoke earlier today at the Curriculum and Program Subcommittee meeting, one of the things that came up was that, because I asked, is this going to be a huge lift? But because this is a much smaller cohort than all of our students walking into schools every day all across the city, that this might be a little more feasible. So I guess I'm wondering why the change, or what would be the drawback to doing the temperature checks? why couldn't it just be an extra precaution?
Something that we could, the other, I think we discussed this too before with the, if someone shows up and has that temperature, at that point in time, where would they be? We had the question, where would be taking the transportation factor? I'm with you. I was surprised that Desi did not indicate that we should be doing temperature checks with students coming back or ball players, or whether male or female. But if the coaches do that, then there's, if someone does have that fever, where at that point in time are they isolated outside contact and/or for transportation with their parent and/or guardian, or is you have to wait until a bus? So Danny, I mean, if that's considered, how would we handle that?
Well, I'd have to just, defer to Jeannie and Dwayne on that. When we talked about it, we were looking to follow the guidelines. But Jeannie, do you want to weigh in on it, or Dwayne?
I can, I don't have the perfect answer, and I just received guidance from the school health unit from DPH today, because we've all been asking when students come back, if somebody is sick and we live in a district where transportation is a problem, could they give us guidance? Well, the guidance that came out is that I need to meet and discuss it with the Department of Public Health in Springfield, which is Springfield Health and Human Services with Helen Calton's department. So I would need time to meet with probably Ann and Helen again to come up with guidelines, what we're going to do if a child gets sick, because we know how to keep them safe and separated. It's when we can't reach the parent. And I understand with sports and how we're going to get them home. And I don't have the answers tonight, because our hope would be we could get a neighbor, an aunt, an uncle, or somebody else, but we would have to pre-do that work when students are signing up for practice like this.
And then you, Nurse Clance, then you might get pushed, let a family member or neighbor say, listen, I'm not going to pick up this child. And so if we do decide to move to the temperature takes, because this is a smaller, as Ms. Hurst indicates, Ms. Baylor indicates, it's a smaller subset. We're not talking about thousands, but we have to have a process. Say someone, he or she does get tested and they're above that 100.4. What's the follow-up at that time? Where the child can be isolated outside, but then how are they going to get home? Who's notified? Vice Chair Collins?
If you wait to check the temperature till they're there, and that child comes above the temperature, isn't the whole bus exposed?
Well, that's what we talked about earlier, that we thought if Desi was going to require testing, that it would be done, we'd have to work it out before you got on that bus. The test would be, the temperature check would be taken, and then you wouldn't even leave your home with that.
Having a coach do it is too late.
Right.
Because you technically exposed everybody who that kid was on
So
transportation.
you'll have two issues here. If somebody's getting bus transportation, do we look at what we originally were looking to do, that the bus, you'd have to be checked, and then if somebody's dropped off, then they're gonna have to be tested there.
I mean, if you were going to take transportation to a game and you were meeting at the school, if we wanted the coaches to do the checks and not follow the MIAA guidance, then you'd have to have the coach do it, but then they wouldn't be able to take the bus with the kids to the meet or the event. Then you'd have to have someone back to watch that student and wait for a parent to come get them or for them to get home. That was the reason the MIAA, I think, did the guidance did that.
My understanding, Vice Chair Collins, is that they would get the check before they got on the bus, and the only ones that are potentially getting on buses are soccer, and we have the vans for golf, right? Or
You have cross country too.
Oh, I'm sorry, but cross country, they are at Forest Park, right? So were we thinking, do we know whether or not they're going to be able to report directly to Forest Park? Or are we thinking that we want to make sure that everyone reports to campus and then we transport them to Forest Park?
How do you usually handle that, Dwayne?
So in a typical school year, obviously the kids would be at school and then they'd be transported over to Forest Park for cross country.
So best to still do that then?
Excuse me?
Would it be best to still do that? Transport them from the school to Forest Park?
That probably would be best because we don't want to eliminate some kids who don't have, who can't get over that way.
That would be the best thing, yeah. So we'd still be able to do the check. If you wanted to do the temperature checks, we could do it before they got out of the house.
So that handles sports that are currently okay to compete on a modified version. Cross country, soccer, I think that's it. AD early, am I correct? That can compete against other schools. So that now to the ones that are conditioning, football
And cheer.
right, combined.
Yeah, we also have the volleyball, which is indoors, which is the recommendation was to postpone because of the fact that it was indoors.
That's the second one, yeah. So the only, again, competing against other schools, soccer and cross country.
Soccer, cross country,
Golf.
and golf. Yes.
And then
Correct.
conditioning or drills or getting in the mind frame for the second season, hopefully in February, March, would be football and cheer.
Football and cheer.
Right
Correct.
now, we don't know the aspects pertaining to basketball and ice hockey. Ice hockey. We don't have ice hockey anyways, but let's say the basketball or wrestling, and that season comes later anyways. Baseball's later too.
That is also correct, Mayor Sarno. There haven't been any determinations on the winter sports yet. We're gonna, obviously they're gonna collect the data as it gets closer to that.
Clarify that, because they might say, well, geez, why aren't you talking about this sport? We're still waiting for the clarification from the MIAA. So the competing sports, we have a plan of attack when they on the bus. So it just goes back to football and cheerleading, and how would that the temperature takes? How should we consider that we're going above and beyond? This is not it's not being recommended by DESI nor MIAA.
Well, if we wanted to do it, we'd have to turn it over. How would you handle it, Jeannie and Dwayne? Would you have the coaches do it? I don't know how you'd handle that. What would your recommendation be if we implement the temperature checks?
Dwayne would have to let me know who to train with all the
coaches.
Yeah,
the coaches and the trainers could supervise.
Right. I think it'd be a combination of training the trainers to supervise the coaches on administering the temperature checks.
And you could get them what they need for thermometers and everything, Jeannie?
Yes, we have infrared thermometer. How many teams are we talking, Dwayne?
So we have 3 football teams. We've got cross country, two cross country teams, cheer at 3 schools, and golf at 1 school. So it'd be a number. We'd have to discuss the amount that we would need.
Yeah, we've been trying to stockpile as many PPEs as possible on the city side, and we also for the school. The other question would be that if we're using bus transportation, these practices or conditioning sessions, there will be bus transportation.
No, they would need it because they'd be just going home to school, going to school, going home.
But I mean,
they'd be practicing right in the
so they'd have to be dropped off there. Is this self transportation? Because I'm saying if kids are taking a bus to get to the conditioning, now do we have to first student that they have to take?
We don't transport the first student. What Dwayne has done in the past for kids who've had problems getting home, they've provided some PBTA tokens. So if they were they have access to PBTA, right, Dwayne, and it would be their piece.
So it's there, they have to get there.
Yeah, so,
Okay, that clarifies.
Or Dwayne could help them with some PBTA passes.
yeah, we do have PVTA passes for the students who take the PVTA in the morning on a traditional school year. However, as myself and Mr. Warwick spoke, and Ms. Martinez spoke earlier, we would find a way to provide some assistance for those kids who can't make it.
Could I ask a question? Does our policy currently state that if you are going to go to a game, that you have to ride the bus, and if you're leaving the game, you have to ride the bus back?
So in a traditional school year, normally most kids would take the bus to an away game. However, during the winter season, when we have intercity basketball, there is no transportation provided because it's within the city limits.
Okay.
But traditionally, kids take the bus with their coach to the game. If a parent decides to go to an away game and take a kid home instead of letting them ride the bus back home, I make sure that there's communication between the coach and the parent, that the parent took the kid and they're not riding the bus back home.
So could we also make sure that that was, Vice Chair, I don't know if we would have to formally amend that, but could we make sure that there was some amendment? Because if a parent says, okay, I'm gonna let you play, but I'm gonna transport you because I don't want you on the bus. I just want to make sure that they're also able to exercise that as well if they wanted to.
Ms. Hurst, absolutely, we could make an amendment to that. It's not a steadfast rule. It's not written in stone, so it could be accommodated for, especially for this.
I just wondered though if I appreciate that, if there was a policy though, Vice Chair.
I don't know that we have a policy that says students must ride the bus back and forth.
Okay.
Always there's been kids who have sometimes gone home with a parent, or even a parent would say, I'm going to the game, I'm going to take them up myself. That's happened forever. So my policy has never prohibited that in the past. I don't see why it would not.
Okay.
But Dwayne could train the coaches, so if a parent chose the fact that they wanted to transport, we would allow that. Dwayne could train the coaches accordingly so we could take care of it.
Absolutely, yes.
So any other questions or comments? We're gonna make some adjustments to this. Are we gonna state those adjustments or gonna be made?
Mr. Mayor,
Assistant Superintendent, oh,
thank you, Denise. So I just wanted one clarification on the temperature. So as we train all the teachers and the families, so the students that opt not to take transportation to practice. So if they, instead of getting dropped off, for example, at Central, to then take the cross-country bus over to Forest Park, the parent opts to just drop them off at Forest Park. Would you want them temperature checked as soon as they arrive at the field also?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Before they got on the bus, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if they're temperature, then we say to the parent, I'm sorry, he or she, you're above the 100.4. We should take the precautions. You're going to have to take the young man or young woman home. And we're going above and beyond, which I think I commend everybody.
Yeah.
Because I'm still surprised that Desi, because when we first started these conversations, school committee members, we were planning it all out, the temperature checks, where would it take place, what's the routine, Jeannie, Helen, where we isolate. But they've relaxed, and matter of fact, they relaxed the footage distance. We're steadfast at 6. They knocked it down to 3, am I correct?
Recommend.
Recommend, right. So,
Well, recommended 6, but they allow.
Right.
We're still recommending 6, but they were allowing.
Just, Jeannie, is the current temperature 100 and not 104?
no, 100.
It's currently 100.
Currently 100.
It's 100. Yeah, they 100.
They lowered it.
They lowered it?
They lowered it.
Okay. I missed that. Even going on, that must just be
Yeah,
very,
it just
very,
happened.
very recent on that. And again, the school committee and Superintendent Warwick and administration and Ellen Kaufman Harrison, on the cabinet heads. We're basing all our decisions on public health, medical, and the sciences. We want to get our kids back in school. It's ASAP. We want to get our kids, as first indicated, socializing, but we're trying to follow the guidelines. And we're in the green, which you, Governor Baker, said for a mid-sized city in America, that's a tremendous accomplishment. We want to stay in the green and get to the white. So if we can go a little bit above and beyond for the students and families and coaches, administration, I think we probably should. And I appreciate all the hard work that's been. I know there's a lot of work on a subcommittee on this. So what needs it, because we have to take a vote here.
Well, I think Dwayne, I was gonna try to make a vote that would make sense, because I believe Dwayne said he was gonna change his recommendation to include cheer.
Which is good.
So I would make a recommendation that a motion that we accept Dwayne's recommendation with the provision that he implement a temperature taking procedure.
That's a motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, Mayor, that if I could just, that also includes cheerleading, right?
Yes.
We're including cheerleading in the motion.
Yep. So the motion by Vice Chair Collins.
I would second that.
Yeah, okay, and then on temperature. Okay, motion by Vice Chair Collins, seconded by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
You're muted, Barbara.
Barb,
Yes.
okay.
and Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
That's more than sufficient for this matter passed.
Thank you, guys.
Audience, our
Yes, thank you.
no disrespect to anybody. Our signal is always this. That means you're muted. I don't want to let anybody think anything else, please. Barb, no, Barb, okay. All right, well, thank you. And
Yeah, great work, folks.
thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Really.
Thank you, appreciate it.
A lot of work, great.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move to reports of standing committees. Student relation, parent concerns, Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. B is Buildings Maintenance Committee, Vice Chair Collins.
No report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. C is Legislation and Contracts Committee, Ms. Perez.
No report at this time.
Thank you. D is Curriculum and Programs Committee. I know Ms. Person is busy on that.
Right, Mr. Mayor, we covered all that came through that subcommittee and that last vote.
Thank you for your reference. Any questions or comments on Ms. Gross' report? Okay, Budget and Finance, Vice Chair Collins.
No report at this time.
Thank you. Vocational Education Committee, Attorney Murphy.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Technology Committee, Ms. Naylor.
No report, sir.
Thank you. School Safety Committee, Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Special Subcommittee, this is Staff Demographics, that's chaired by Ms. Perez. Ms. Perez.
No report at this time.
Okay, thank you. The report of the student representative of the school committee, we look forward to that, he or she, when they join it, so that's not applicable tonight. Report of the Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We finished our PD week last week. We had 5 full days of PD, which again, most places in the Commonwealth don't have anywhere near that. So that went really well. We were able to get the learning management platform training done, a lot of other training, and it went absolutely great. We're in now to the 10-day collaborative planning. That's going well. You know, that extra 10 days, so grateful to the school committee to agree to put that in the calendar, because this is a radical change and people have to operate differently, and they needed this collaboration time. The other big piece of that is the opportunity to reach out to every family and go over the expectations with each student and their parents. So that'll occur during this 10 days also. And then we'll start our remote program on Tuesday, September 15th. But that extra 10 days that the school committee voted on is going to be very beneficial in making this whole situation work. So I thank you for that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Ward. Any questions or comments on Superintendent Ward's report? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any unfinished business? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any new business?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, may I inquire? And it's not necessary for a discussion, but just something I wanted us to think about as we move forward. With us now engaging students in sports, I wonder if programs like ROTC, you know, can be, you know, something that we think about in the future for how do we engage students who are not necessarily interested in sports and athletics. I think of ROTC because I know we have a huge ROTC program in the city, but there may be other programs that the students can get engaged in some capacity beyond the sports. So I just want us to be thinking about that. And I'm pretty sure you already are, but I just like to hear more about that in the future as to what kinds of activities we can, you know, that we can think of for the students to stay engaged, not just in high school either, also middle schoolers. And
I think that was a great question you brought up, Ms. Taylor, because if we can, that's structured and not only discipline, but physicals and other things that skills and training goes on. So I know the superintendent would probably already have been looking into that too, but that extracurricular activities that possibly could be done. That's a great statement. Any other new business?
No, Mayor, just very briefly, I would agree with Ms. Naylor. I think the more we can do for our kids to get them safely re-engaged, that would be great. And obviously, we're trying the gateway with sports, and we could do ROTC and other programs. You know, as long as we can do it safely and in compliance with the CDC and all that, I think it is important not to forget, you know, not every kid is involved in sports, and it is, I mean, I think a lot of our kids are, you know, they're sort of isolated in this environment, so it's important to try to get things back going. So I would appreciate any movement in that area.
And we, again, we will defeat this COVID-19. Direction has come down from Governor Baker on being prepared for the vaccine, which is coming, which is going to go really to the most vulnerable to start with, and the first responders. And that'll be worked through with the Department of Public Health. So that's on its way in the very near future. So as much as we can safely gear things up on public health, medicine, and science, we're going to do it on that. So it is surreal and extraordinary times, and I commend everybody for what we've been able to accomplish and what we'll continue to do. Any other new business? Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn? So moved. I heard that grunt from Attorney Murphy. Got cut off.
I guess that's a second, Mayor. I don't know if it's a grunt or a second.
To Attorney Murphy, and the second, the Vice Chair Collins. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Hurst?
Yes.
Attorney Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
yes.
Ms. Gresham?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mayor Sarno?
Yes, for insufficient vote, this matter passes to focus Springfield Josue. Thank you to my Renaissance man here, my city solicitor, Ed Pakula, Mr. IT tonight. Thank you to each and every one of you. A safe, healthy, and happy Labor Day weekend. Good evening, and thank you for watching.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
Take care.
God bless.